Today we unveil why African Americans were systematically robbed of their land and wealth. Brace yourselves, for this journey will shed light on an unsettling past, an understanding of which is pivotal for our pursuit of a more just and equitable future. Stay with us until the end to uncover the depth of this dark chapter and how its impact resonates to this day. During the early 20th century, they managed to acquire a substantial 14 million acres of land, often through means like the Freedmen's Bureau, which provided assistance to newly freed slaves. The intent was to provide a fair start for these individuals and communities, acknowledging the historical injustices they had endured. African Americans took up this opportunity with determination, despite the challenges they faced. However, as the 20th century progressed, systemic racism and discriminatory practices became more insidious. The dream of land ownership turned into a nightmare as African Americans were targeted through various means to strip them of their hard-earned properties. What followed was a systematic erosion of their economic foundation, reflecting a darker reality. The struggle for racial equity was far from over. In the 21st century, shockingly, only 1.1 million acres of farmland remain in the hands of African Americans. To truly appreciate the enormity of this land theft, it is essential to delve into the economic and social context of the times. The early 20th century witnessed a rapidly evolving American landscape. The nation was grappling with the aftermath of Reconstruction, and racial tensions were on the rise. African Americans, despite their newly gained freedom, faced deeply entrenched prejudices and discriminatory practices. The dream of land ownership, a fundamental tenet of the American dream, was systematically undermined for them. Sharecropping and tenancy were pervasive systems that shackled African Americans to a cycle of poverty and economic exploitation. Owning land was seen as a means to break free from this cycle, to secure a future for their families and communities. However, a series of insidious mechanisms were put into place to ensure that this dream remained elusive for African Americans. One of the most distressing methods employed was violence, often instigated by jealousy and a deep-seated prejudice. Lynchings, more than just acts of brutal violence, were strategic tools to suppress African American economic progress. These acts of terrorism, committed against innocent individuals, were aimed at instilling fear, preventing black wealth accumulation, and ultimately upholding white supremacy. Tax sales became another insidious way to undermine the economic prosperity of African Americans. Overvaluing their property meant they had to bear a disproportionate tax burden. Unable to cope with the escalating payments, many were pushed into default and subsequently lost their land through tax auctions. These auctions, ostensibly designed to recover unpaid taxes, ironically enriched opportunistic speculators at the expense of African American landowners. The Torrens Acts, initially envisioned to streamline land title registry, were twisted into a mechanism of exploitation. What was meant to provide clarity and protection for landowners turned into a tool for third parties to seize land through partition sales. This exploitation further widened the wealth gap, enriching a select few while leaving African Americans dispossessed. Heirs' property, a common issue, arose from the lack of formal legal procedures in inheritance. With generations inheriting properties without clear titles, African American families were left vulnerable to exploitation. Developers seized upon this vulnerability, contributing to the loss of their valuable land. The cumulative effect of these methods, practiced over a century, has been devastating, reverberating through generations and entrenching racial disparities. Efforts to address these injustices have been inconsistent and insufficient. The racial wealth gap persists, underlining the urgent need to confront this history and its ongoing implications. Understanding this dark chapter in American history is crucial as we strive for a more just society. Shedding light on these issues, acknowledging the pain of the past, and working towards equitable solutions is vital.